Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 7th edition of Tool Talk. Myself, Nishant, Kashyap. I'm the editor of TAGMA Times magazine and your host for today's session. Today, we have our special guest, Mr. Akshay Kalyanpur, EC member of TAGMA India and director of Sridevi Tools as my co-host for this session. Thanks, Akshay, for joining in this session. As you all know, some of you have already, been attended the previous session. We had Mr. V.T. Venkateshwara Rao, DGM Tooling of Mahindra and Mahindra as our guest in last session. He highlighted some of the trends in automotive industry, OEMs expectations in the tooling from the tooling industries, and he also made some suggestions to tool makers. Today we have Mr. Vinnie Mehta, Director General of Automotive Component Manufacturers Association. Mr. Mehta will share insights about the trends in the automotive industry, how the component industry is catching up with the demand in the OEMs, and how the industry is gearing for the EV revolution and what impact it is going to have in the tooling industry. Now, I would request Mr. Sanmuka Sundaram, Vice President of TAGMA India, to say a few words about Mr. Mehta.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. Mr. Vinnie Mehta, Director General, Automotive Component Manufacturers Association of India, is an electrical engineer from IIT BHU, an MBA from FMS University of Delhi, and a Master's in International Trade from the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He has been actively involved in promotion, growth, and development of the auto component industry in India. Prior to joining ACMA, he headed the Manufacturers Association for the Information Technology, MAIT, the apex body of the IT hardware industry in India. On behalf of EC members, on behalf of TAGMA members, I welcome Vinnie Mehta for this evening tool talk. Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for your valuable time sparring with us. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure and honor. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. San. Before we start our conversation, I would request everyone to keep yourself in a mute mode, and also you can switch off the video as well. And also, if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box, which Mr. Mehta can address at the end of this conversation. Shall we start, Mr. Mehta?
Yes, please go ahead.
Right. So just to set the tone, to start with, if you can talk us about the activities of ACMA and how it is helping the Indian auto component industry during such times.
So Nishant, first of all, let me thank TAGMA for hosting me and Nishant. When it comes to ACMA, ACMA is a well-established institution. We were set up in the year 1959. So we've been there. Not many institutions survive that long. But I would only sort of focus on the short term of what we've done is that the last 2 years have been very defining for ACMA and for the whole industry. We, in some sense, have transformed ourselves from what is a brick and mortar industry to something which is a complete digital association, in some sense, a digitally driven industry. And I think what we offered to our members in the pandemic was that we went really out of the way to create customer connect and government connect. Okay. And this brought in a lot of confidence, when you're talking to your customers, while, everything was very, very ambiguous. But then when you talk to your customer, you get some understanding of the visibility of how things are going to pan out. Not that they knew a lot at that point in time, but it just that helps you in making or bringing in so much of confidence. And of course, we had a very, very heightened government interaction and government connect, which also in some sense, you felt somewhat secure that yes, there was a government that was probably standing by you. Even the notion of it makes you feel very, very confident. And this happened both at the central level and at the state level. But honestly, in terms of what we do for the industry, our charter is really very wide. Now, very quickly for your understanding, we operate in 5 buckets or 5 pillars, as we call it. The first pillar is on business development, and honestly, I mean, there are many things that we do under business development, including the Auto Expo. When it was a good old physical world, we were taking one international delegation or a business exhibition participation once every month. That's of course needs to be revitalized now. The Auto Expo is ours. The ACMA Auto Mechanica is ours. That under the business development. Another key pillar, like any other association, is that on government regulation and on government advocacy. Right now, we are busy doing the PLI for the Auto Expo. Maybe we'll talk about it later. Third pillar is it's called a pillar on mentoring. And as you all know, we run cluster programs very successfully. We have helped something like 1,200 plus companies become, or 1,200 plus plants, if I may say so, become world class. And right now we are developing what is called as an ACMA capability maturity model. Maybe if I could also probably help connect you to my team, and maybe this could help your industry as well, upgrade in some sense. The fourth pillar is something which is essentially looking at creating engagements in newer segments of the industry. This is a very strategic initiative and very new. And here we're doing a very significant engagement of the industry with startups. Okay. That's one of the deliverables. And the last pillar, like any other association, is that on media. Okay. And we are fairly active on the social media if you track us. But otherwise also we get, we are a B2B industry. We're not as, if I may say, smart and sexy as the OEMs. But despite being a B2B industry, we have a fair share of media mind space. And I think we're doing good at that. So this is how ACMA is. I mean, I can go on and on, but yeah, this is what typically we do to help the industry. Yeah.
It's good to know, Vinnie. I mean, even the ACMA members would be probably assured of what ACMA is doing and would have got all the support during the pandemic from you guys. And also a few pointers for TAGMA members and EC members also to take something from what you said right now. And with your permission, can we touch upon the core topic right now?
Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. I mean,
so can you tell us, Vinnie, about the global automotive trend versus what's happening with the Indian industry and its impact on the component industry?
Yeah. What happens is how an industry shapes is very much determined by the regulatory framework that it operates in. And what you find globally is that there is a very significant focus on climate issues, okay, global warming and stuff like that, pollution control, okay, and the other element that is, of course, when you look at the environment, you're talking about what's just derived out of is the emissions. The other element is that of safety, So all these taken together actually is pushing the global industry towards carbon neutrality, okay, reducing the carbon footprints, and also making the vehicles safer, okay. And that is why you see globally a very significant emergence. And of course, another element is that on energy security, okay. And all this is pushing the industry towards electric mobility at this juncture. That's one of the probably solutions, and there could be other plausible solutions like a hydrogen technology and stuff like that. And within the electric mobility, there are various variants, whether it is a battery, a pure battery electric mobility, whether it is a hybrid, within hybrids, whether it's a plug-in hybrid. So there are many shades within these. But the moot point is that globally, the industry is moving towards reducing their carbon footprints and making the industry much safer and improving the user experience. And this has a clear reflection on the Indian industry as well. That is because, the policy direction from our government is also almost similar to this, because we are a signatory to the Paris Convention, and therefore we have to reduce, our particulate emission. We have to reduce our carbon footprinting. And then, the government has given a clear directive that India will follow what is called as the UNECE norms when it comes to the automotive industry. And UNECE is under WP29. We work with all the global industry and we decide what are the global standards for the industry. So India has decided to follow the UNECE norms, albeit with a phase lag, because our country is not in that state of readiness as a developed country. And secondly, we fine-tune these regulations to Indian needs, because the driving condition in India are not the same as that in Europe. So when you see our transition from BS4 to BS6, it's nothing but a variant of Euro 4 to Euro 6. Okay. Similarly, we are going to be tightening, and we are tightening our CAFE norms, which is the common average fuel efficiency norms. Okay. All this is happening because there is a framework of the UNECE norms, and accordingly, what you find is that in India now also there is a very significant push towards electric mobility. While there is no, in some sense, a mandate, you would have in UK has declared by 2040 and the entire fleet will be electric. Europe is probably talking about 2030, so every country or every continent or a geography has declared for itself a certain year as a target. India does not or has not yet and probably may not define the terminal year of when you will become purely electric, because our school of thought is that ours is a very checkered and a very, very large country. Okay, and therefore the government mandate would be technology neutral, because many technologies can coexist together. Okay, but having said that, our emission norms are becoming increasingly stringent. Okay, and also the government is tightening safety norms. Okay, your vehicles 5 years ago till when you look at it, and today they are so much more superior in terms of their safety, in terms of usage and comfort, the user experience that you experience. Government is now talking about introducing 6 airbags to make it more safer. We have already brought in on anti-lock braking systems. We are talking about electronic control stability system. So there is a lot of focus by the government on safety now. Okay, and this is really very, very encouraging, because what happens is, and even let's say we moved from Euro 4 to Euro 6 or BS4 to BS6. So in some sense, you're making the Indian product at par with global product, and therefore it opens another opportunity for you to also export. But yes, of course, what we are finding is that, e-mobility, at least in terms of its media mind share, is catching up pretty big, although numbers still remain very, very small. Only time will tell, but definitely there is a lot of excitement in the market about, e-mobility products. I mean, I can go on and on, so tell me where to stop on a particular subject, but maybe I'll stop here and maybe it allows one other question.
But it's interesting, Vinnie, that you say that the trends are actually decided by the external factors like government and emission norms.
Yes.
I've got to believe till now that it's the customers that tell you the trend, what they like. But it's interesting to know it's actually driven by the norms of that particular country.
Yeah, it's pretty much, the boundary condition of operation is the regulatory framework under which anybody can operate. It's like you are a citizen of a country and you cannot go beyond the constitution of that country. Okay. While you may not, I mean, you're breathing it every single day. That's how the institutional framework is. You do not realize it. A
Yeah,
fish lives in water and that's its world. It cannot live out of its water, out of the
true.
water. The regulatory framework is something that's decided, but yes, what technology will eventually succeed is based on the total cost of ownership. Okay, whether I will consume a petrol vehicle or whether I'll buy an electric vehicle is based on the total cost of ownership. And maybe if the petrol and diesel prices continue to be so high as what it is, it may gravitate the consumer towards an electric product.
Correct. And it's good that you spoke about EVs and BS6 because my next two follow-up questions are based on them.
Yes.
There's a general fear and uncertainty that if electric vehicles we were to transition to, what
Yes.
happens to the tool makers? Do they
Yes.
have to lose business, or do they have to upskill themselves to, meet the requirements of probably lightweighting or even transition in certain materials from sheet metal to plastic? What happens to the tooling industry?
I think it's definitely worth pondering about. Okay. It's about how do you see in the landscape, there is an emerging opportunity. Okay. And it can also be a threat to you. It's a question of how do you play that game? Okay. And how do you adapt or you transform yourself for that? Now, I do not think so. There is a threat immediately. Okay, because let's say today there is a lot of excitement in the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler market when it comes to the electric vehicle products. That is, so first of all, you must understand that electric mobility globally has been incentivized by the government and therefore it is able to survive. Okay. Till such time, it has either caught on the imagination of the people like a Tesla. Okay, but so from if you look at India, we started working on electric mobility in the year 2013. Okay, what was called as National Electric Mobility Program. Okay, so since 2013 till date, there have been many a scheme from the central government and the state governments that have been incentivizing electric mobility products. Okay. And the moment you withdraw that incentive or that scheme comes to an end, the consumption of electric mobile products, electric mobility products drops. Okay, so we have not been able to create a sustainable story so far in that count. Now, what has happened is very, very recently, when the FAME 2 scheme, which has an allocation of 10,000 crore rupees to incentivize consumers for buying electric mobility products, came to an end this fiscal year. Okay, that is March 2021. We were 97% short on target for every damn thing. We have a target of 1 million two-wheelers. Okay, we have a target of 500,000 three-wheelers. We have a target of 55,000 taxis. Okay, and this is a mix of pure taxis and hybrid taxis. And there is a target of, if I'm not mistaken, 7,000 buses. Okay. Buses, we haven't yet seen them come out in terms of the FAME 2, although there's a tender that's being worked upon for almost a year now. But on all the products, whether it is a two-wheeler, whether it is a three-wheeler, whether it is the passenger vehicle or the taxis, okay, they have fallen woefully short of the targets that were given to them. Okay, so the government decided that we will now increase the incentive. Okay, so The incentive has now been increased from rupees 10,000 rupees per kilowatt hour to rupees 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, almost in some sense a 50% raise in the incentive that the government has given. And backed by this, you know, there are about 16 or 17 states that have come forward who are giving incentives of various kinds. Some of them are directly to the consumer, some of them to the manufacturer, to incentivize them, to encourage them, to motivate them. This has led in last 2-3 months only, and that the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler sales are doing very, very good. We are doing almost to the tune of 15,000 to 20,000 two-wheelers a single month for last 3 to 4 odd months because the incentive has gone up. And similarly, it's happening for the three-wheelers. So in some sense, the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler industry is hitting a tipping point when it comes to electric mobility. Okay, the same is not yet the case for the passenger vehicles, neither for the commercial vehicle industry. Okay, but for the buses, but again, typically buses are something which is a subject of, you know, the state transport organizations and stuff like that.
True.
So what does it mean for us as an industry? Okay. So I would say that, look, my understanding is, and extrapolating the current trends as to where the battery prices are dropping and maybe the way the fuel prices are going up or whatever, we believe that in next 5 years, the two-wheeler industry, you will have around 10 to 15% of the market of two-wheeler industry to be electric. Okay. For the three-wheeler industry, it will be about 50% of the market. But for passenger vehicles, it will be about 5%. Okay, and for commercial vehicle, I'm not talking about the buses, that could be a much higher number, but when it comes to the commercial vehicles, as in the trucks, goods movement, that would remain still very, very minuscule, because as of now, no sustainable solution for a long distance movement of goods has been found out when it comes to electric mobility. So So I do not think so there is, with these kind of volumes, I do not think so there is a reason for the industry to panic. Okay. Yeah. That does not mean that we will not prepare ourselves. Okay, because the writing is pretty much on the wall that, look, if not 5 years, 10 years down the line, it's pretty much that the volumes will be very, very large when it comes to electric mobility. And, the tipping point can come a little forward if the battery prices were to drop down. For all you know, there's a new chemistry that comes out when it comes to the battery. Today, everything is lithium ion or some variant of it. Okay, but what if there is a new chemistry that is made of the battery, and because the research is constantly on this, because at the end of the day, we're all looking at carbon neutrality, carbon footprint, bringing it down. Okay, so I guess what it means for the industry is that we have to prepare for the future. Okay. And I think, let's say, I'll give you an example of the car industry. Say by 2030, if the volumes of cars are 10 million at that point in time, and by any imagination and a stretch, if 30% of that market is electric, okay, then you have a 7 million unit, which is still the conventional. Okay, and it's probably more than double of the volume today. Okay, so I would say that there is no need for one to panic. Okay. But also you must understand the conventional industry is also undergoing a lot of transformation. It's going a lot of change in the product mix. Okay, there is a huge focus on the CAFE norms. You have to improve fuel efficiency. Therefore, the product itself will have a lot of play of composites, of new age material, of lightweighting. Okay, and similarly, all the back-end industries have to prepare accordingly. Okay, now also in some sense, when you look at a component industry or a tool industry, okay, there is a lot of digitization of factories that's happening. Okay, that's irrespective of electric mobility. Everybody is wanting you to be more efficient. Okay, and the customer now, because the times are so volatile, the customer needs a visibility of what you are producing. Okay, he needs a clear picture of it to be assured. Okay, he also is looking at means to de-risk himself. Okay, so therefore you will also need to, as manufacturing industry, we will have to increasingly deploy industry 4.0 or IT tools or whatever you may need to say, to be much more efficient, to be much more able to predict our production, to be able to, in some sense, do predictive maintenances at our end, okay, and reduce the downtime to make sure, nothing suffers, okay. So, and of course, I mean, all the points that you mentioned to me of what you need to do as an industry has to always keep, going up. Your reliability has to go up. You need to see how you can localize more, because as I mentioned earlier, it's in the interest of your customer. Nobody wants to import because, again, what we've learned in the pandemic is that we need to de-risk ourselves. We need to localize more. You don't want to anymore be dependent on a China, I guess that's a clear message that the pandemic has given us. So I guess we need to work on all these counts. And from a tooling industry's perspective, you need to, in some sense, build confidence in your customer that the Indian made tools are as good, if not better, than what are the international tools, because there is still a significant import that happens in the tool industry.
Yeah.
I understand that, a lot of the import happens because the OEM or the customer tells their suppliers where to get the tools from, and more often it is their comfort level that they have with their existing suppliers, and sometimes, technologies, they could be our industry, the Indian industry could be challenged on the front of technologies. Okay, so I guess there are few imperatives one has to see from this movement or transition of technology is that we really need to work on technology. Okay, and when I say technology, it could be in terms of new product development, it could be in terms of R&D, in terms of creating innovative products, and it could be in terms of deployment of technology within our factories. Okay, the second thing is your capital invest. We think of capital invest in short term, and we think that, look, I need to get an ROI, because there is no denying the fact that the capital in this country is one of the highest in the world. Okay, so but having said that, I think you have to think through, because you don't have to I wouldn't say or recommend that look at it from a perspective of ROI, but you need to think of investing for the future. Okay, and of course, when I say invest for the future, it's very difficult. It's very easy for me to say this, but then again, somewhere, unfortunately, in our country, we do not encourage this culture of failing. And I guess that's a little bit of an issue here. The other thing is skilling. Okay, and so skilling of people will be very important. Because they need to understand what the changes in the customer product, and accordingly the product that we offer. Okay, that has to undergo a significant change. And I said also there'll be a lot of deployment of IT in our systems and the factories. Okay, therefore they need to be skilled well. Okay, I guess these are some of the few imperatives that are there for our industry to work upon.
Thanks, Vinnie. I think my key takeaway is going to be that the transition is going to be not very fast. It's not going to be very rapid that we need to panic. But that's no excuse for stopping manufacturing excellence and improving and upskilling. And
absolutely.
And before I pass it on to Nishant, one quick question. BS6 was an event which resulted in a lot of tooling business for the tooling industry. Is there any such events in the near future that's going to happen?
I think the focus of the government is clearly on localization. Okay, I do not think so. It's going to end there. It's going to be continuing, and I mean, we've been working almost midnight oil, working on the PLI that the government is going to announce. So the Department of Heavy Industries announced a PLI on auto and auto components. But what it has not yet done is the technologies that they would incentivize. Okay, and that list should be done sometime, if my understanding is in the first week of November. Okay, and once you have those technologies announced, okay, and one of the key criteria, of course, those are all advanced technologies, but one of the underlying factor is, and a message is that those need to be localized. Okay, so when you talk about newer technologies to be localized, like the one that we had in BS6, I'm sure there's going to be a very significant opportunity for our tooling industry as well. Yeah.
Point well taken. Over to you, Nishant.
Right. So thanks a lot, Mr. Mehta, for charting out all the trends that is shaping up in the global and Indian automotive industry. Also, in between, you mentioned about the PLI scheme. So we know that government is very much bullish on the PLI schemes and launching PLI schemes for various industries. So my question is, what it means for the auto component industry and how it is going to impact the tooling business in India?
So I think there are three defining schemes, if I may say, from the Department of Heavy Industry that target the automotive industry. I mentioned about the FAME2 scheme, and FAME2 scheme has an allocation of about 10,000 crore rupees. But this is more focused on incentivizing the consumer, but it does impact the back end because it enables creation of volumes. Okay, that's one. The other PLI scheme that the government announced is that on advanced cell chemistry for localization of batteries. Okay, here the allocation is around 18,000 crore. Okay, and it focuses on making cells for batteries in the country. Okay, and the third scheme, which is just about announced, is that the PLI on the auto and auto components, and it has an allocation of around 26,000 crore rupees. Okay, so in all, the kitty adds up to be, if I'm not mistaken, 26 plus 10 plus 18 is something like 54,000 crore rupees, and that's a very significant kitty that the government is giving to the industry. And as I said that, once you have the technologies announced for the auto and auto component PLI, there will be a very significant opportunity for the component industry, as also the tool industry in conjunction. There'll be a lot of opportunity for them. And clearly, what's well understood is that once again, the auto and auto component PLI, when it comes to the vehicles, it's going to be promoting hydrogen vehicles. It's going to be promoting electric vehicles. Okay, and that apart, there's a whole host of next generation technologies that would get deployed in the conventional ICE engine vehicles. So all in all, the landscape looks very, very exciting. A lot of money coming from the government, but it needs to be seen how it is channelized and how the industry makes the best of it. Yeah, so it's only time can tell, but it looks exciting at this juncture. Yeah.
Right. So of course it is exciting, and it looks like a huge opportunity as well. So my other question is, like, before we enjoy the benefits of PLI, we still have to tackle the situation of chip shortage, rising fuel price, and poor demand. So is the worst yet to come, or situation is under control already, or we can see some good days ahead?
Let me sort of try and answer that. So what are the headwinds that are facing the automotive industry today? Okay, one, of course, well, let me say what is the tailwind first. I guess what's very important and good is that the growth forecast for the GDP is around 10.5% for this year, and probably we are one of the fastest growing economies globally. So that augurs well. And secondly, what's also very remarkable is that as a country, we've vaccinated 1 billion plus people, and it's understood that the herd immunity has sort of kicked in. I'm no expert, but in that sense, it builds in a lot of confidence that things are worst is probably behind us when it comes to the pandemic and the disruptions that we faced. I would like to take it on the face value. Now, what are the headwinds that are facing us? Of course, you would have read, it's like to the death done that there is a semiconductor shortage in the industry, and honestly, we do not have a visibility on when will it end. I read a recent BCG report, and it said that it will continue well into 2022, and even towards the later part of 2022, there'll be a shortfall of around 10% semiconductor when it comes to the automotive industry. So probably it's going to bleed into 2023. So there's really no clear visibility. But having said that, the good thing is that there is a demand. Okay, today, if you look at any car model, you have a waiting period of 4 to 6 months. Okay, some of them are now running into, of course, we are closing the year another 3 months down the line, but it sounds funny that cars booked in 2021 gets delivered in 2022. The commercial vehicle market is also growing. Okay. So semiconductor is a big challenge that's facing us. Other one is a challenge on the raw material prices. Okay, the raw material prices are going up like crazy. Okay, whether it is steel, whether it is copper, whether it's aluminum, and what is not made easy is all these funny news that you hear is that aluminum production is coming under stress from China. Magnesium is coming under stress in China. Cobalt, which is used in electric vehicles, is coming under stress. So the news is not really very encouraging. Okay, and raw material prices are going up very steeply. Okay, the third issue is on logistics front. The logistics costs are going up. We are still not been able to resolve the problem of shortage of containers. Okay, and container prices for exports have gone humongously up from 5x to anywhere about 10x. Okay, and that's making it very difficult for both exports and for imports. Okay, and of course, in the automotive space also, we have a huge import. We import almost close to 15 billion worth of auto components every single year. So definitely these are some of the challenges, but having said that, how we see the year closing, probably what you will see by March 2021 is that the two-wheeler industry will witness probably a -5% kind of a degrowth. The pass vehicles will be in the range of 8 to 10% positive. The commercial vehicle industry will be growing at around 20%, and the tractor industry will be flattish. The commercial vehicle industry has been suffering for a very long time. It's coming on a low base. Okay, and the tractor industry has had some good runs in last 2 years, so that will remain flattish. So this is typically how we believe that the year will end, and maybe then you can derive as to what it means for you people. In the component space, we think we will be growing in the range of 10 to 15%. Our performance is always a tad better than the vehicle industry because we have a very vibrant aftermarket, and also we have a very vibrant export market. Okay, so this in some sense is like a silver lining. Exports have been growing steadily. Maybe the China +1 sourcing has started to have some impact. We haven't seen any movement of incentive from China to India, but in terms of orders, in terms of inquiries, it has gone up very, very significantly, whether it is for Europe, whether it is for China, for the US markets. Yeah.
Yeah, Vinny, acknowledging the challenges that the industry is facing, how can ACMA and TAGMA get together and work together basically for localizing part of the imports that our industry today, because of various reasons, depends upon China, Korea, or Taiwan.
Yeah.
Can we do together something?
I find it very silly or stupid, if I may say. So forgive me for using these kind of words. You know, I'm a little open. You see, we did a study maybe about 6 months ago. ACMA and SIAM together did a study on localization, as I mentioned to you, and our import content. When I say import content, whether it is whether the component industry or the vehicle industry or the aftermarket people, our overall import content is around 1,75,000 crores. Okay, and of that, the import of tools and dies is around 7,800 odd crore. Okay,
right.
And we believe SIAM and ACMA together. Okay, we believe that at least in the short run, the localization can be in the range of 2 to 4% when it comes to the tool and die industry, and maybe in about 5 to 7 years time, we can at least localize about 20%. And in fact, these are the kind of targets or targets that the OEMs have set for themselves. Is an average target that the OEMs have taken up for themselves, and then you know how it happens is we are a very top-down industry, and then it sort of translates down the value chain. And this alone could be opportunity of around 1,500 crore. So I think we must work together more closely. We must. I think I'm sorry, maybe I'm not aware of it if you've already done, but you know, somewhere you need to create forums, and you need to create exhibitions, whether they are virtual, whether they are you know, physical, and sort of call on more of these OEMs, ask more of the component guys. I'm not too sure there is a very strong linkage between our kind of industry, whether I do not know how closely you work with SIAM. You know, this is probably the first time that I'm addressing you people. I should have addressed you maybe 10 years ago or even earlier. So I think, I don't mean an offense at all, you know, it's just that, you know, there's a certain time that clicks, and maybe this is the time for us to literally, you know, hit the roof in that sense. So I guess we must work together, and I would say that I'll be very happy to support you whenever you have a requirement of a speaker, or you want to come and visit the auto component industry to study our practices. See, I would like to believe that we are a world-class industry, because today we export to over 160 countries. And forget that, you know, our major customers are US and Europe, each almost 30% we export to, and we export to OEMs and to tier ones. So in terms, I would say that, you know, we have a certain level of global quality to offer today. Okay, and honestly, a lot of the OEMs now look at the Indian component industry with a great degree of respect. Okay, I would be very happy if you wish at a certain point in time to bring in a delegation to see any auto component company. If you wish to do any buyer sellers meet with the ACMA, I would be happy to sort of send delegations, you know, who could be your customers.
Right.
Also, I mean, I can connect, we can create forums to connect where the component industry can tell you what items need to be localized. Okay, so that there is some degree of an assured business case for you to invest. Okay,
Right.
and Honestly, I would like, we run this, we have an ACMA Center of Excellence, and we also have a very strong division, which, as I mentioned to you, has transformed 1,200 plants to be world class. Maybe I will ask the head, we have a CEO who heads this business vertical, or the pillar as we call it. And maybe I could sort of have him give you a talk as to what it needs to be world class, what are the kind of programs that we have. Okay, and I understand that most of the TAGMA members would be small and medium enterprises. Okay.
True.
So together with the UNIDO, we are again the same kind of intervention that we do for larger companies, but I would say slice it to fit their requirement. We offer this program under UNIDO. And because it is coming from UNIDO, it is significantly subsidized. So it's tailor-made for companies that are really very small, companies that are 20 crore and less. So maybe I could have our CEO is Dinesh Ved Pathak. I could also have him connect to you or as a forum, the way whatever you may want, or to TAGMA, and give a presentation of what we are doing in that space. And probably that could be another way of helping an industry, because if any segment of the value chain is uplifted, it helps the entire industry.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true.
Vinnie, I think we'll take you up on the offer of, if we are also part of those 1,200 companies that you're planning to make them world class.
Yes.
I believe our members will find great value if there is some coaching or mentorship that comes from your side.
Absolutely. It is a mentorship program. We call it training mentorship. Yes.
Right. And this takes me to my next question, probably speculative. See, the amount of localizing that has to happen, it's quite a lot. Like you just said, that figure is about 7,800 crores that we are importing, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what's the trend in tooling going to be? Are the automotive OEMs and tier ones going to set up their own tool room, or probably they'll nudge us to increase our capacity? What do you foresee?
Well, it's very difficult for me to say. It really depends upon your capabilities and what they are expecting. Okay. And a lot of the times, as I said, things happen because they are not aware. So it's very important for you to create forums where you are visible, where your capabilities are showcased. Okay. And I'm sure, you can work together. I'm not sure, is Department of Heavy Industry your parent ministry? So is that it? So maybe with the Department of Heavy Industry, because that's also the parent ministry for ACMA and SIAM. Okay. Now, I'm not sure how it works for you, but together with the Department of Heavy Industry, you could sort of tell them you need money to create localization forums. They could subsidize it for you. So the point is that unless the industry is aware of your capabilities, it's very difficult sort of for them. They may just take a unilateral decision, and we do a lot of these technologies days with the OEMs. Okay. Hypothetically speaking, let's say you want to, there is a company X that you target, or a bunch of companies that you target. Okay. And you put together a group of companies, 20 companies, and invite their technical people to come and visit, I guess it has worked very well for us. In some sense, every OEM interacts with us today, and we create technology days for them because they need localization. Okay. Even companies such as Maruti, who are so hugely localized and who probably know the Indian auto component base like the back of their hand, yet they appreciate that we bring in a set of 30, 40 component suppliers to them, because they also need to de-risk themselves. They also have plans of, expanding, and they need to also keep that in their data, because what if they were to expand their footprint into another part of the country where they're not, then they also have to have, a ready bunch of people that they can go to and then quickly ramp up. So I would advise you to do some of these very traditional things, but it works. And these can also be done virtually. We also have been doing these virtually in the pandemic. Yeah.
Thanks. Over to you, Nishant.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mehta. Thanks for giving us a heads up on how TAGMA and ACMA can work together. And definitely, as you said, that if one industry of the ecosystem is uplifted, it is good for the entire, industry value chain. So my another question is last year, TAGMA released a report on Indian tooling industry.
Yes.
There we found a very interesting part, which says that major global auto manufacturing countries have also a strong domestic tooling industry, with India being an exception.
Yes.
A lot of tools are imported in the country. So what is the reason for the same, and how we can overcome this situation?
I guess one, of course, you see, what happens is that, and I do not mean any offense to anybody, it's just that, if you look at, say, the car industry, okay, it's dominated by the Japanese and the Koreans. Okay, and what happens, and if you look at the genesis even of the evolution of the auto component industry in India, when Maruti came into India, they in some sense set up joint ventures with the Japanese, who were the earlier suppliers, okay, who were the traditional suppliers. They got into joint venture with the Indian companies because they had these comfort level, and I don't mean comfort level that they were pally, just that their comfort level on the delivery parameters. Okay, they got them into India. They got these joint ventures. They got the technologies into the Indian component space. Okay, so it's probably when the market is dominated by or it so happens that the market is dominated by non-Indian players. Okay, and therefore sort of you find progressively down the value chain, there is more import, and probably that is what is reflective on the tooling industry as well. But as I'm saying today, everybody realizes that, import, it is first of all the competence, okay, and secondly, I think, as I said, imports are not good for the industry, because the exchange rate parity and RP is depreciating, and it keeps adding to the cost, and it then impacts the competitiveness of the entire industry. Okay, right. And then it also, it's not that we wish to import. Okay, but sometimes, say, a component industry is asked by the OEM that so and so vendor is somebody that you need to import from, and I guess, but then the as I said, the TAGMA and the members, they need to also showcase themselves. They need to you need to do a survey, you need to do a customer survey and find out where do you lag, whether it is your quality, whether it is your delivery, whether it is your uptime, what is it that is lacking. Okay, and I guess you need that constant interaction, you need that constant customer feedback, and work on the customer feedback. And also, it's your desire to grow. I mean, if you think a lot of the Indian entrepreneurs feel that they are 100, 200 crore companies, and that's happy and easy at it, because that's a very significant, in our context, milestone that you've achieved. And then you'll remain small. You have to, I think, really very, very big. Can you sort of become $1 billion, $2 billion industry? And I guess that it's a lot of hard work. It's much easier said, but I guess you have to think big. You have to have that goal. Does TAGMA have this aspiration that we want to be within the top 3 in the world? What do we wish to do for that? What do our members need to do for that? I guess you need to, probably you're already doing. I mean, I guess you're all very smart and intelligent people, but I guess that also needs to be seen. That fire in the bellies also need to be seen and by your customer to believe. And I guess we had a great run with the OEMs because they do handhold us really very, very well. And there is no reason why your customers would not want to do it. It's just a question of them believing in you, and therefore you have to do that bit for them to believe in you.
Right. Right. So just a couple of more questions before we take questions from the audience. Mr. Mehta, in between you also mentioned about the Industry 4.0 as one of the trend that is shaping up in the industry. Also, you stressed upon the benefits of Industry 4.0, how it can be beneficial in the going forward in terms of predictive maintenance and all. But my question is, how much sense does it make in a frugal market like ours? And should one wait and watch to start implementing it already?
So I use the Industry 4.0 for a better word because that's the best understood. Okay, I think in our kind of industry, even low cost automation works. Okay,
Right.
and our team, the team on Pillar 3 that I mentioned to you, is actually working with a lot of smaller companies to give them a lot of low-cost solutions. You need not sort of, in some sense, embed IT and costly systems into everything. You can make a judicious call. At the end of the day, it's how the information flow happens and how you build in transparency. And there can be many low-cost IT solutions also. I mean, there are many options available to that. But the moot point is that, the whole idea is to make sure that you have a very sound control on your tools of productivity. Okay, tools, I means all machines that are there, and in the sense that at the end of the day, as a CEO, you're able to get it on a dashboard as to what is the status of your factory. Okay, and down to granular level. Okay, and also sort of you can in some sense track your entire value chain as to where your raw material is and where your output is, everything. So if you are in control of your business, it helps much better.
I would second to Vinny. I'm a big fan of low cost automation. And that's what I've been telling people, whoever asks me about anything about Industry 4.0, I would say first, the core principle of the business should be strong, and then we should look at automation. And okay, so one last question from my side. What advice would you give tool makers at the back of the pandemic, the COVID-19 that happened? What would your advice be to our tool makers?
Oh, I really do not know if I can advise. You guys are very smart people. It's very difficult for me to give a single advice. I think a lesson learned is being, I think be debt free as much as possible. Okay. I mean, first of all, please make sure that you have very strong balance sheets. Make sure that, the governance is very, very strong. Okay. So very important when a customer, sort of wants to review your balance sheet should be very, very solid. And secondly, what I see in the component space is that a lot of the companies are who are not debt free are sort of trying to be debt free. Why? Because when in pandemic we had no production, then servicing the debt becomes a big, a millstone around your neck. Okay, so do please focus on that. Please make sure you are sort of in some sense lean on capital. Okay, and make sure you sweat it to the most. Okay, and I guess make sure at least the pandemic taught us this, how you can reduce your cost and use digital tools. I'm not at this juncture referring to the shop floor. That's also very important, and we've talked about it, but even in terms of management, in terms of how you can, you need not have very swanky head offices, you can literally sort of work off home from certain people who are clerks like me and don't need to come to the office. You can work out of home, right? So you need to see how you work smartly with smart tools. And at the end of the day, what defines is how agile you are and how responsive you are to what your customer wants. Okay, because let's say whenever we have an interaction with a customer, they are so thankful to the supplier community because with the kind of with the shortfall in supply, with the shortfall in the chips, they may commit something of what will happen in the month, the schedules for the month, but actually weekly and sometimes on daily basis, the schedules fluctuate so much, and the component industry is able to deliver collectively on those schedules. So therefore, it's very important for you to be very, very flexible, be very, very responsible, and it's very important for you to stay connected to the customer. Okay, I guess what happens is when you are connected to somebody, relationships build, and it is the relationships that sustain, and this is something very humane. I mean, there's nothing science about it, there's management gyan about it, but it's a very, very basic thing is, build very, very strong networks so that you can fall on them when you need them. Yeah.
Super.
Right. So thank you, Mr. Mehta. It was nice learning about the trends in automotive industry, the impact of PLI schemes, and how TAGMA and ACMA can work together for the betterment of both the industry. So now let's take the questions from the audience.
So Nishant, I have a request. If you're going to publish what I say, just screen through because I sometimes speak a little, if I may quote unquote, a little loose. I'm a little informal in the way I am. It may not exactly be palatable to people when they read what I say. So just make sure use your language skills to make me look a little smarter.
Definitely, don't worry on that. And anyways, I'll share with you the draft.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this first question from Mr. Gopala Krishnan. Okay, it's an statement, not a question. Mr. Gopala Krishnan.
Yeah, please go ahead. My apologies. Yeah. Go ahead.
So Mr. Gopala Krishnan is also an EC member of TAGMA India. He says, we look forward to your hand-holding of deserving and interested TAGMA members from ACMA.
Sure. There's no issue at all. I mean, as I said, I will touch base our CEO for Pillar 3 with you, and we can at least commence a dialogue out of there. I believe that is something, one of the most valued service of ACMA, because, if you're upgrading shop floors, that's much appreciated by everybody, and it results in productivity improvement, a whole lot of positives through it. So we can begin from there. If nothing else, I'll at least organize a presentation and then we can pick up threads and see what works.
Sure. Thanks. I would request everyone to post their questions in the chat box. We have another question from Mr. Mahesh Nair. He asks, can you highlight on the need for tool makers to update in terms of design automation and PLM to cater to fast delivery of mold and part, ultimately reducing the time and design and also helping the reducing the losses?
So in some sense, you've answered what you need to be doing.
Yeah, I think he also writes catering to cope up with the fast emerging trend in automotive industry. So probably he's asking how we can catch up with the fast emerging trends in the automotive industry.
Also, I think I can, there are many consultants available who can do it free for you, just give you a talk. I mean, The other thing that we do is that we work with very many consultants. Okay, at any given point in time, there are many studies that are going on in ACMA. Okay, whether they are industry trends, whether they're on market opportunities, whether they are on looking at what improvements that we need to do as an industry in terms of our products, in terms of our shop floors, whatever. So that is another way of getting exposure, because, you know, obviously you cannot go out and scan the whole world. So that does it. But in case, I mean, and we have Pricewaterhouse, PwC, as a consultant on retainer. And they have some defined targets and some reports that they do on a defined periodicity. Okay, that's one. And also we have Ernst & Young as a partner on retainer. They look at a lot of government matters for us. Okay, say budget recommendations. So let's say if there is when we have a call for budget recommendations, I get inundated by maybe 150 or 200 recommendations. Who am I to sift those? So we actually so ask the consultant to sift through, because what can happen, what may not happen or cannot happen is not a practical suggestion. Okay, they scan through all that. Okay, and then eventually sort of they present or they make the document that's palatable to the government. Okay, so I guess as an organization, as an institution, you must build these knowledge capabilities, and of course, whenever you need any consultant or you wish an insight into the automotive industry, I can always organize. But you know, what would be good is that, you know, if you like we're doing this session here, there could be an OEM who comes and talks to you on trends. You know, there could be somebody from the electric vehicle industry that comes and gives you trends, or it could be somebody from the government itself who gives you a trend. So there are many which ways you can do it, but I'll also be very happy to share with some of the reports that come out for us, and we can give it to you, and that should not be a problem.
Sure.
Right. One question from Mr. Mayur. He says, we have a question regarding GST on tooling developed for export requirements. We became directly incompetitive by 18% as compared to China and other countries, since they do not charge any tax for export toolings.
I'm not a taxation expert, but again, you know, I do not think so. It is ever the intent of the government to export taxes. Okay, one can, I'm sure you can sort of make a representation to the government on this subject, and I'm sure the DHI will support you well on this count. But believe you me, it's not the intention of the government to export taxes, and I know for sure that taxes are reimbursed for exports purposes. There could be a drawback, or if you are an SEZ, you don't need to pay. So do please check it through a chartered accountant also and validate what you're saying.
Right. So any more questions anyone want to ask? Post in the chat box, or Akshay, do you want to ask anything to Mr. Mehta?
No, nothing from my side. Vinnie, I think it was a very insightful talk, and I'm glad it was more of a conversation than a webinar. And thank you for offering the help to TAGMA and its members. And we definitely look forward to staying connected with you, Vinnie. And let's increase the velocity of our conversations and our activities. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, we'll get there. We'll become world-class manufacturers as well.
Sure, definitely. My best wishes to all of you, and my best wishes to all of you for the Diwali. So please stay safe and happy Diwali. Take care. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and your valuable time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today's session, and stay tuned for the next session. We'll inform you shortly. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Vinnie.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.